General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, hereby informing all attendees that a video and audio recording is being made of the meeting. First on our agenda is I'd like to do a member roll call vote. We're a little overlapping here. We have an alternate that'll be sitting in and voting on our special permit, but he will not be voting on our regular business because we have full members. But because he started the special permit per advice of town council, he will continue it. Okay, so we have Matt Carlino via Zoom. Here. In person. Meg Byron.
Here.
Dave Forrest.
Yep.
Conrad Decker.
Here.
Peter Blum.
Here.
Buck Donovan here. Okay, gentlemen and ladies, we have our master plan list of people. Just going down through it, it's a very, I think, a good list. Peter, you're in there, so I imagine you, since you're the member of the planning board, you'll end up being chair of it?
Possibly. I'm certainly going to be present at the first meeting, and I will chair until the body decides whether it wants me to continue as chair. But I would like to discuss that with the members first before we conclude that. So there may be other people who could be more effective as chair than I.
So in this, Kathy Hall, Gail Ceresia, Mark Navin, Tom Swift, Sean Renier, Kirk Nichols, Peter Blum, Neil Clark, Betsy Strickler, Laura Page, and Diane Westphizer. And all have shown interest in being on this committee, the master plan committee. So I'm looking for a motion to reach out to these people to finalize this committee.
Do you want to interview them, or do you want to just appoint them here?
I think we just appoint them here. Most are known by somebody here.
I would.
No objections.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I would do that. I would make that motion, Board.
Okay.
Chairman Donovan.
There a second?
I'll second.
Dave Forrest seconds. I guess since we have one person Zoom, we got to do a roll call.
I had a conversation this morning with a fellow that I'd been speaking with about joining the committee named David Buttery. Beth, have you heard from him? I expected that you would have heard from him. I talked to him this morning and he told me that he wanted to be a member of the committee.
It's definitely not too late.
Would we like to? Yeah.
David is not a longtime Lee resident, but he's a retired engineer who has a lot of experience in industry. And in talking with him, I thought that he could add a lot to our sort of concept of what the plan might do and how it ought to be organized. He seemed very focused on trying to make it effective in guiding town policy. And I thought that would be a plus. Even though he's not a longtime resident, he has a lot of industry. Had a lot of longtime residents, so I thought it would be a good cross section.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Could we accept these people, and then if he wants to be on, we could take him at the next meeting?
I think the next step would be for Beth to reach out to all of these.
Oh, okay.
Sure they're still on board for it. Some might have changed mind, and we'll add David Buttery to that list.
Fine with me.
And then they can be instructed to convene a meeting.
Great. I have no problem.
Okay. All in favor? Peg?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Donovan, aye. So we have a master plan committee. It works finally. Good.
Can I, before we leave this entirely, can you tell me, anybody tell me what our connection to the Regional Planning Commission is now? Is there somebody that I should call and communicate with and coordinate a meeting?
I believe Tom Matusko.
Oh, he's going to do it personally?
I don't think he is, but he'll know, he'll be your
Okay.
contact as which person they're gonna
Okay,
put with us. Because he has been asking where we are on it. So,
all right, I'll be glad to do that. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Let's see.
But I asked one, I asked this before, but you have to help me. My mind isn't as good as it used to be. I know Peter's chairing it, and I think that's great, and thank you, Peter. If some of us wanted to go to the meeting will be posted all the time, so it is possible we could go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we're
Great.
subject to the open meetings.
okay, that's what I thought, but,
And come to think of it, Peter, our people might not even be really the chair. It might be the person from Berkshire Regional.
okay,
Would be more logical chair.
I think
run
of them
the
as
meeting.
staff more than I think of them as.
Oh.
All right. All right,
great,
but eventually the planning board is
makes the,
makes the final decision on it, and we present it to the select board.
sure,
That's how the state.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
We have a few more minutes before you guys, so we're gonna take care of some of our business, okay? We might as well do some sign permits.
Just in the back of the packet.
Yeah. Problem I'm seeing already is you ask for an RFI or just a question. Still not doing it. Dimensions.
Exhibit's wrong.
Yep.
So do we need a motion or can we just have Beth explain to them why they need to keep working on it?
Is Jonathan on the line?
What's
Is
that?
Jonathan on the line?
I don't know.
Matt Gordon, Bob Jones.
I think we have to clarify with them what they need to do. And if they don't get it done, there's a chance we're going to reject it.
We're still tabling it.
Yep.
Tell them how would you word it? We need the square footage of the entire logo and the letters, not the letter outline, the box that they can read our bylaws, and it describes it very explicitly what constitutes the square footage of the sign.
Jonathan understood that when he was on the phone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He said it was solid, that's the same one.
Same one. Yep. That all we have? Oh, Pilgrim Inn.
Oh,
Same one too, isn't it?
yeah.
Same one too.
Table that one.
The date on it, from the Citgo thing is January 19th, 21.
And from what I understand, that lower sign is a screen, right, Beth? Not a digital screen. It would be moving, which is not an allowed sign.
Right,
So,
right.
Yep.
And size wise, it looks like it's, you say it's 3 square feet. Could be.
48 by,
Hmm.
so 2 by 4. That's 8 square feet of that sign.
Also, whatever the existing one is.
Yep. The
The
upper,
summation of the two can't exceed 16 square feet, right?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm. In that district,
I
16.
thought our issue was It was lit. It's
Yeah.
moving.
Right,
It can be lit in that district.
right, but it was moving too, or something,
It's moving.
yeah.
It would really help. What are you seeing? Matt, you still with us there? Not hearing much from you.
I have to recuse myself from this one anyways,
Yeah, okay.
but I'm here.
What's the allowed square footage?
16 in that district.
Made a mistake. I got something way more than that.
Yeah, I looked it up earlier too, last time.
You do have Gordon with his hand up.
Okay. Gordon, yes, sir?
Hi, yes, thank you. No, all I wanted to comment was that sometimes we can't hear all the members. I don't know if you have a mic that's covered up down near Peter. Because no, that one too. Because a lot of times we just can't hear people at that end of the table. So until they talk about 5 or 6 sentences, and all of a sudden it's there. So I'm just letting you know that there's some audibility problems on that end of the table. That's all. Thank you very much.
It's all been good. We lost Conrad when you were talking about the sicko sign, but maybe moving the mic will take care of that.
I'm always the problem.
That was good.
Definitely heard that, Conrad.
A little inconsistent though, still with Conrad.
You. Oh, goodness.
21.77 square feet.
It's,
Both of them together.
Both of them?
That's, the property is entitled to one unit of signage, right?
Right.
Mhm,
Look it up, but I take your word.
right,
So it's over.
it's over.
single business will not exceed sign may contain. No. What's the top one? The main one is
The
how
top one
big?
is 32 by 62.
Which works out to how many square feet? Because it says,
They added it before.
freestanding sign for single business will not exceed 16 square feet.
Mm-hmm,
Sign may contain an additional 8 square feet of signage for additional business on the property, a maximum of 48 square feet.
But this is only one business, right?
Right.
mm-hmm,
So it's
So
16.
they don't get
Mhm.
that 16.
right.
62 by 32. It matters. It's the total, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm,
It's all the same business.
The upper sign, the Pilgrim Inn part of it says 13.77 square feet.
over.
They had a little bit left over. They had 2.2 square feet left over.
I would say we tell them the sign's too big and the type of sign in the lower section is not acceptable.
You want a motion?
Yes, please.
I move that the board decline to approve the sign permit on the ground that the total sign size is too large and it contains moving animations.
I'll second that, Peter, if that's okay.
Okay, roll call. Peg,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Matt. Oh, he recused himself. Matt
Yeah.
recused.
Yeah,
All right.
recuse myself. Yep.
Oh, anyway, sign is denied.
You gotta finish your roll call?
Myself, Buck Donovan, aye. That was it. 4 of us. Hey, time we got?
What time is
Mr.
it?
Chairman? Nope, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
sir.
excuse me. I'm getting tremendous feedback on this. Wheels, high-pitched wheels. I don't know if anybody else listening is getting the same thing, but I'm having trouble with that.
We had it, and I've been texting Beth. So, Gordon, whatever you hear, I hear. So I'm letting Beth know.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. I'll be quiet now. Thank you. I'm glad that you're getting it too.
But we're okay now.
Better now?
Yeah, we're all good. It stopped. It was a beep that came and went. Hopefully it's gone because it is quite loud.
I'm still getting a hell of a wheel.
Could it possibly be feedback from microphone to amplifier to speaker to microphone again?
It's
Why don't you-
it's not happening now. So I don't know if we can figure it out, but it's not happening now.
As it is.
I'm still getting a different squeal. Anyway, maybe I'll just leave the meeting.
Still no good, Gordon?
No, everything's good. Everything's been good. The only thing was this beeping did come up, but it's gone right now, and we couldn't hear Conrad on a couple things, but I think we're okay on that also. So everything else sounds great.
All right, let's see, we're at 6:50. Oh, we're smoking right through this. We really can't start, we could probably do site plan?
Is there a reason you can't start?
Thinking about that.
We don't have a time on the agenda.
Oh, shoot. My fault, I was thinking 6:30, sorry, guys.
Yeah, but you said in the last public hearing.
Did,
it was 6.
did, yeah. Yeah, we do,
Is that what this one? That's a public meeting.
right, we'll get that. Yeah, we'll get these, sign permits and we'll get going on that. In my packet.
Is Chapel Street here?
Here we are. Yep, I got it. Beth. So, Chris. No. Three square feet. See him in the permit.
Basically a 1.5 by 2 foot.
Yeah.
This is a business, right?
It is.
And what zone are we in?
RB.
One Chapel.
Just past the ball field.
I only had the Sitco in my packet. What are we on now? What is this one?
This is CMS truck and auto repair. Chris Smith. Right by the softball field, Matt.
Okay. I don't, unless I missed it, which very well could be the case. I didn't have it in my packet.
I don't think I did either. I may have missed it.
Looks like it's on 102, not on Chapel Street. Is that photo 102?
No, it's
It is?
That's Chapel.
Okay.
Looks.
He's not here, right?
No.
3 square foot sign is permissible
Either place. if
any
it's-
place in town, so for business.
Yeah.
So I don't even think I have to look it up. I'll move to endorse the sign permit.
There a second?
I'll second.
Dave seconds. Roll call vote. Peter,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Peg,
Aye.
Matt? Matt?
What would you like me to do here? Should I abstain? Because I haven't even seen the sign, so I really can't vote on it.
Okay, then you abstain. Matt abstains and Buck Donovan, aye. Planning board endorses the sign. Okay, you guys want to give us a little bit of your updates on your,
Sure, and I'll just
Site
take the site
plan?
plan review.
site plan review we'll do now?
Because technically, that's not a public hearing, so. I think-
Correct.
Good evening, for your record, Jim Scalise, engineer with SK Design Group. I'm here with Sam Nickerson, who's the applicant with Ecos Properties, and also Nick Arienti, who's the project's attorney. We received some comments. I had some interaction with the neighbors, which was great, thank you. And as part of that, we also received an email with some comments. So we've made some changes, which we submitted via email today, and I've also made some smaller copies to pass out. Very minor changes, but I think they, the record should be clear in that this has been formally submitted, and here's some paper copies for your record. I tried to highlight just the changes that were made. That should be enough for everyone. You folks like,
The lighting plan.
Oh, good, I'm
Can
glad.
remove lights.
Yeah.
So the comments that we received, and I'm not here to speak for the neighbors, they can clearly speak for themselves at the appropriate time. But what we heard in the comments was concerns that we've made. We heard about the dumpster enclosure. The dumpster right now has a stockade fence around it. It's painted gray. It's kind of around a tree. It's in a nondescript gravel access to it. We kind of like that location for all the reasons. It's pretty nondescript. We'd like to keep it there. We agree that the dumpster needs to be kept closed, which is, I think, a management thing. Putting an some sort of electric automatic closer on the dumpster door is impractical. As it comes to the folks who use that the most, which would be the trash fellas. They're a little rough on equipment, and snow removal and that sort of thing makes it a little difficult to manage. So we think that's a management. We have an applicant here with history. We have an applicant with experience, and we're going to maintain that fence. Well, the fence looks a little worn out. We'll probably replace it at some point. And in the meantime, we're going to make sure that we install rods at the center, so we can make sure that stays closed. It doesn't just rely on the latch. And then other comment we heard was about lighting. We heard about lighting. We also heard about traffic headlights. So with a one-way counterclockwise rotation, and I highlighted it, we're proposing really two things. We also heard about trespassing. And if you go out there right now, there's actually a stake in the ground with a little no trespassing sign on it. So we know that there's an issue there with folks from this property migrating a little further south than they should. So we're happy to maintain that sign, and we show some plantings of some bushes. Now there are overhead wires in the area there, so we just got to manage kind of the height, but we think we can get some height there with some bushes or some low-lying trees or some dwarf trees, plantings. And then where we projected a car coming around the corner with the headlights, we're actually going to build up a little bit of earth berm on our property. So when we plant that and stagger the plantings, you'll be able to shield that neighboring property from headlights. We've had good luck with that approach. It's a natural looking approach, which is what the applicant prefers, but it accomplishes the goal. Further, if you switch to what would be your second page, is labeled drawing 3 of 3, talking a lot about lighting, we actually eliminated 2 of the lights. We really, from a safety standpoint, we want lights at the road curb cuts. So we maintain those 2 lights, both north and south, at its intersection with Route 20. And then we maintain the lighting at the corners where we believe folks will be kind of arriving into the parking area or exiting the parking areas. We believe those two areas require a little bit of nighttime lighting. Other than that, off the building will be plenty. So we've eliminated 2 lights on the driveway, and that way, if there was any potential for it becoming a nuisance, we just eliminated it. So we think from a site plan review, with the approved landscaping, our goal here is to fully listen to the comments received, and we think we've done that. So if there's further issue, we're here on site plan. And we talked about everything earlier as it related to parking and those other issues. But that's all I have that's new. Oh, there was a comment about a bear resistant lid. You can Google that. It's $180. We're happy to put bear resistant lids on our dumpster at the board.
Okay, we'll go around. Conrad, you have any?
Just questions on the do.
We spoke in the hallway briefly, and then I believe you sent me a letter and an email. I gave them my card and they sent me a note.
And you're referring to your name?
Cameron Diaz.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you met with that.
They mentioned a fence. We're kind of trying to avoid, several hundred feet of fence if possible. So this was our alternative to that request.
What's the letter of the butter?
Is it? Yeah,
Is that acceptable, I guess?
Yes.
it is. Okay.
Okay. So in that letter, they indicated that on those shields on those southerly poles, because go ahead and put them on now. I think
The
just
photometrics just didn't require it, but if you want us to 2 lights to put those on, we did eliminate what I thought was going to be the problem light, and just took it off the plan. So
I think
the upper light.
the upper light.
That's right. That one should be shielded. I agree with you.
So you would have a.
Actually, yeah. Okay.
There on it. So
Fair enough.
maybe we can just make that a condition.
That the southerly lights be shielded.
Yes.
I think that the gull wing LED is a 3,000 K fixture. It seemed to be,
Yeah.
everybody thought was appropriate.
Agree. Yep.
Maybe we could make that as a condition.
Peter?
Jim, let's talk a little bit about what goes on behind the building. There's a natural area on the other side of the boundary on the east, am I right?
Yes. Yeah. There's a state forest, or there's town forest land there.
Right, right. So all of the doors are going to be on the west facing, not all of them, most of them.
Right.
There's not going to be anybody with a back door out toward the natural area, I understand it, is that right?
No, will be, they're the doors going in and out.
Egress.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay,
So
all right.
there's 2 means of egress from everything.
Right.
So I read some comments that some of the neighbors are concerned that some of the potential residents may be using the natural area in a way that those writers find unacceptable. Can you shed any light on what kind of use is likely to occur there
If you,
in crossing the boundary in particular?
So that's the difficult issue. I mean, trying to police public land, which is available to any resident in town, is difficult. But from our perspective, we're not encouraging it. The only work we're doing back there is some drainage improvements, because actually the neighbors kind of forewarned us that there's water comes off the hill, which we kind of figured out. So we're going to renovate the existing, the old drainage system and upgrade that as needed. We've met with the Conservation Commission on that. We're comfortable. But beyond that, we're not doing any clearing to the line. There's no trail building. There's no, I've been on projects where we've tried to use that as an amenity, and that's not our intention here. We're not looking to encourage that. But if folks who, rent in town, live in town, want to use town land for passive recreation, I think that's encouraged. If you read your own master plan, I would suggest that you encourage passive recreation. And, that's why we have open space. So we're not proposing to prohibit, access to that land.
Nor are you encouraging it by building a path to?
No, we're not doing any trail building or any, no.
Thank you, Jim.
The only work back there is for the drain.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Dave?
Yeah, I'm glad you seem to have answered everybody's questions. You tried to deal with neighbors' concerns. So I think, I really think, between you and the owner, you stepped up. And I appreciate that myself.
Hey?
Hi, I was just curious, if, we hope there isn't, but if there were a problem with parking for the number of units that you have, is there other space there that possibly could be?
There is. If you look at the site plan, I've described it as a horseshoe, but there's actually a section of driveway that's parallel to Route 20. So for overflow parking, there's approximately 4 parking spaces on that paved area right now that exists. So we felt that, if you look at the town bylaw, it suggests 1 parking space per unit. We're kind of up to what I believe is standard, honestly, to have about 1.6. And then you add another 4 along that little front section. And I think, if someone has a birthday or something, right, that always happens. So there'll be some extra, there is some space available on site without really having to make any disturbance of any kind. So it seems to work out pretty well. We don't want to pave more than we have to.
Thank you. I was just curious.
I have a question.
Just a second. We have one more member, then I'll get to the public, okay? Matt, you there?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think everything's been covered in regards to the site plan, so I'm good with it. Thank you.
Yeah, we're just discussing the site plan right now, not the change of use special permit.
I understand
So,
that, but I
Okay,
just don't understand the process. Okay.
Go ahead.
Nope. What's that? Yes. Frank, okay. Why don't you come up to the mic and we'll hear what you have to say, and maybe we can clarify or figure.
Okay, again, my name is Catherine Hibbert, and husband Rick Bollock and I are the butters to the north at 230 and 240 Laurel Street. I also live in my childhood home at 250 Laurel Street, just next one up. And one of the things that we have concerns about are the parking, the new parking spaces that are the parallel parking spaces that are lining the sides of the motel. And if those go in, we would like some type of screening, because I don't want to be looking at those cars parked there. I feel that those parking spaces are going to be very difficult because they're on the there, and that this is increasing the footprint of some of the area here. So that's a point that out about those parking areas. It's going to be difficult to maintain in the winter.
Speaking about the 4 on each side of the driveway.
Yes, the 4 on each.
4 on the other.
Yeah. Yes. But we own the open space immediately and also the house. So we own 7 acres north of other abutting 7 acres to the north.
The one is a vacant lot.
Yes, but we use that, we walk through that area twice a day. We appreciate, we sit there and next to our gazebo and our bench and we, enjoy our property. And so we could, when we sit there, we're looking right down at the motel. We do. So it would be a major change there going up. And I also think visually from the road that it's not as appealing when you look up to the motel. Previously, all the parking has been up along the top of the motel and see it all streaming down. I don't think it's. And we were some of the people who made the comments about the town forest, and it's not necessarily, well, it's I can't imagine people won't want to use their backyards. It's adding a lot of use to the area. And right now is a bad time to take a look at that because there's a lot of vegetation that is screening. But if you go the other, there's 4 months of the year when you have all it's blocked, it's screened. But the other times when people are walking through there, you could look directly into the backyard of the hotel because all that vegetation understory falls to the ground. So there will be impacts to that town forest and the animals who live there. There will be with more lighting, more noise, and there'll be more disturbance with this. So suggest some type of fencing to preserve that aspect of the town forest.
Is that where you're fencing along the entire back line of the lot?
Yes.
Wouldn't that would almost look like a fortress then, wouldn't it? There already is a tree line there. They own that lot.
I think she's saying those are probably just.
Yeah, they are.
And they lose their leaves.
And you're looking under them too.
Yeah.
All set, Kathy? Have a good night.
In regards to the site plan, can I just add an item to the record, please?
Yep.
The house at 250 Laurel Street is approximately 300 feet to the north. So we're not dealing with, I think from a proximity perspective, we have a situation where, although I respect that neighbor's concerns and the use of their property, and I know it sounds like they own other properties, but their residence is some distance away. So parking a few cars along the driveway, I think is pretty normal in residential setting. And I would suggest that it's in keeping with the character of the neighborhood to both park along the driveway. And I think that goes with the fence. I mean, if we would never ask a residential neighbor to put a fence and prohibit them from accessing town open space. I don't think that's appropriate. I'm happy to agree to disagree, but that's my opinion.
Any more on the site plan? Anyone? So now we need to do, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just want to know between the trees along the driveway, I just want to know the distance.
Can we ask that person to come to the microphone and ask the question so she's on record?
When the revised proposed site plan with the shrubs along the border of my property on the south side of 200 Laurel Street, I just want to know the distance between
So
the
it's a two-part answer. The ones that are on the mound are like 7 feet apart.
Okay.
So to block the headlights, but the ones that go further east and west are 15 feet apart.
Okay.
That just allows them to mature.
Okay.
That's kind of our thought.
Yep.
Saying here it's either arborvitae or can.
We're going to have them densely put there so that if a car, we kind of put a car on the site plan, it blocks the headlights. So I'm pointing to the area on the southerly line where you actually can see like an elliptical shape. Those are proposed contours, and that's depicting a mounded, a raised up. Because the plants that have a good success rate with landscaping, usually plants some smaller sizes. but you don't want to wait forever for them to grow. So we're going to put a few feet of earth there to raise them up, which will make it, at plant.
Other trees are so
What would be
mature.
what would be the installed caliper or the installed height? What's on the mound?
Yeah, they're like, they either come 3 to 4 feet or 3 to 5 feet is the starting height. But 2 to 3 foot mound.
You want to make a condition
Mhm.
of installed height of minimum.
When we get there, yep. How tall?
Minimum. 5 feet, I think so. So you want to say a minimum 3 foot? Do you have a caliper?
I think they come with a caliper at that type of plant. They come in a,
The Green Giants?
yeah, they'll come in a sized container. But if you want, I think the height's simpler to specify.
Okay.
Let me say height. Top of the mound. It should give you a good 6 foot install height.
Yeah.
Once the place opens.
So, first off, we're gonna need a waiver of strict site plan.
Move to waive site plan review.
Second,
Second from Matt. Roll call vote, Conrad? Peter? Dave? Aye. Matt?
aye.
Buck Donovan, aye. Now, a motion with our conditions for the site plan. Go ahead, Peter.
I move approve site plan with the lighting fixtures on poles would be 16 feet, 70 watt.
K.
Yeah, so 70 watts would be an LED fixture, right? So we're not describing the lumens, but describing the wattage. And the picture of the light would be 3,000 degrees Kelvin, which is a soft yellow light.
Right.
That would be the first condition I propose. That's the goal wing implies a shielding.
Condition 2.
Well, then why don't you state that part?
Okay. As just related, have these shields installed at the time of construction.
That would be a second condition. Third condition I propose is that the revised plans be approved as to plantings in general, which includes 3 to 5 foot height plantings, evergreen plantings on the mound, on the berm, trying to block the headlights. And the applicant is not offering this, but I also think that there should be 60 feet of evergreen shrubbery on the north border that screens the parallel parking area. So that would be
Another condition. 60.
I'm using that. That's number 3.
In those trees.
To
block the 4 parking spaces.
block the 4 parking spaces
Understood.
in the northern part of the driveway.
60 linear feet plus or minus. Yeah.
Just guessing that that's going to be enough to block most
I
of it.
follow what you're asking for. I'll revise the plan accordingly.
Is there anything else?
Next to the, those parallel parking spots.
Well, you can't put them next to the parking spots because the driveway is next to the parking spots. They're going to have to be on the north side of the driveway.
Set them from the driveway just to allow for snow.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I've got it drawn.
Sounds good. Okay.
That's all I can think of. So that's my motion.
We covered the dumpster.
I don't have anything about the dumpster. I think
Do we want to go bear proof or it's enclosed already?
I have it on the site plan that it's enclosed.
Yeah, I guess I would make a fourth condition that it's otherwise subject to the offering that you've made tonight, Jim.
For the cover? Sure.
That the other offerings.
I'd never-
are accepted.
I learned something today there, to be honest with you. I didn't know about that. So, yeah. Steel reinforced lid to keep bears out.
I think they have one down at Brown Memorial right now.
Okay.
Get off the top.
And that was a 5-minute search, so I'm sure we can find.
So we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Dave Forrest seconds. Any further discussion?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, point of order.
What do you got, Gordon?
Just could you make sure you give the date of the plan that you were just talking about? Because there's multiple plans floating around. So we need to, I didn't hear the plan date announced. Maybe it was. But if there's more than one plan that's been submitted to you, maybe with Peter's motion, we know what the date of the revision is. And that's all. There's just a point of order, no other comments.
I'll vote on the plan submitted dated August 4th. Gordon, or Gordon, Conrad, Peter,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Matt,
Oh, I thought we were still in discussion. Did we, the technology was a little broken up, but I got most of everything. Did, we incorporate, is it, Mrs. Hillard's, boundary request on the parking spots in the conditions?
we did. That is the 60 feet of evergreens shielding the parking spots.
From the north?
North side, yes.
Okay. I will vote aye.
Aye. Buck Donovan, aye. Okay, site plan is done. At this time, I'd like to open up the public hearing for point 1, pre-existing non-conforming structures. The applicant is looking for a change of use with other.
Good evening may I proceed?
Yep, go ahead.
Good evening. For your record, Jim Scalise, engineer with SK Design Group for Ecos Properties at 200 Laurel Street. We really have two, what we thought might be two applications, understanding the second one is in flux a little bit. The two parts of the zoning bylaw that potentially apply to this application would be section 6.1, which is the purview of this board under non-conforming structures, uses, and lots. And our reason for being here is that we're asking the planning board to find that the proposed change from an existing hotel to residential apartments with less units, that such a change, extension, or alteration shall not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood. That's the first finding we're asking for. The second is that such extended, altered, or reconstructed structure or changed use shall not be in greater nonconformity with three things: open space, yard, and off-street parking requirements. I think that's the focus of what we're doing in this room tonight, is just those two things. I know there's been talk about the criteria under 9.2, but I think that's the purview of the select board should we be required to go there. So I think our focus tonight is just really on those two things. So I'm gonna stick to that unless you ask me questions, but that's my plan I interpret the zoning bylaw. So the proposal here is that the existing unit count is 24. There's 24 units with 26 bedrooms. That's what we have there, because we use bedrooms to calculate impacts for things like sewer and water. The proposed unit count is 16, which is about 33% less, and the proposed bedrooms is 17, which is 34% less. So we're about a third less. We're about a third less density as it relates to units and/or bedrooms, however you want to count it. So this proposed use has less people, frankly, on property. So our approach is that this change is not substantially more detrimental, just based on density. That we have less use, we have less activity, We have a permanent use as it relates to residency, particularly as defined by the building code, rather than a transient use. And when you find that folks live in one place for a while, they tend to have familiarity with it. And in that, there's safety. They're more used to the driveway. They're more used to how they park. They're just used to how to operate on the site and occupy the property. So it's our contention here that the reduction in density on the site meets the finding required under Section 1, and that goes into sewer, water, traffic, and I'll go through those because those are general special permit findings, anyways. But it leads us into all of that conclusion. But I think your first finding is pretty cut and dry as it relates to just a number of people on property. The second finding we're asking for is that such extended, altered, or reconstructed structure or changed use, which we're really going to have both, shall not be in greater nonconformity with open space, yard, or off-street parking. Now, we spent some time on the site plan talking about parking, so I'll hit that one first. We made a proposal to the board that we were meeting the bylaw. We received a comment that still may not be enough parking. We all have experience with how these things can go. And we reacted by looking at a national standard, the Urban Land Institute. We gave you more parking. And we think we even have a few more spaces that we can overflow on down by Route 20. So we think, if anything, we might be a hair overparked. So we think we meet the off-street parking requirements. We know we meet them under the bylaw, but we also think that we meet them under what's the intent of and comments received from the board. Under open space, this project will result in the lot coverage of 6.8%, and the dimensional requirements allow up to 20% lot coverage. So we have significantly less rooftop on this property than is allowed by the bylaw. So we think we meet the open space requirement. Then for yard's the tricky one. I saved it for last. Is the side yard setback is currently 21 feet, round numbers, 21 and a half feet. The requirement for multifamily dwellings is 25 feet, but we're not proposing any change. So the question is, I guess, can we make the finding, or can you make the finding that will not be in greater nonconformity? So we know we're in nonconformity now. We have a building sitting there. It's 21 and a half feet from the property line, but we're not making the building any larger in that direction. So we contend we're not making a greater nonconformity with respect to yards. And the building's really going to be maintained in the same identical footprint that it's in now. And we think those are the requirements that fit under what we think is the section that really applies here tonight, which is section 6.1. Those are your two primary findings. But with any special permit, you're also required to, I believe, go under section 13.4 special permits. And under 13.4D, there's special permit findings. And I think there's 5 of them. So if I run through those very quickly, follows all the provisions and requirements of this chapter and in harmony with the general intent and purpose. We believe that changing a non-conforming use, a use that's not allowed in your table of uses, which is a hotel in this location, is it's in harmony with the bylaw to make it a use that is allowed. Now, I know the use is allowed by special permit, but it's still an allowable use. And I think I could argue that in a residential neighborhood, I have a permanent occupancy rather than a transient occupancy. So there's less density and the transient occupancy, at least with the building code, is considered more intense. What we're proposing is a less intense use, which I think is more in harmony with the residential neighbors. And then is essential or desirable to the public convenience or welfare at the proposed location. Well, the project site is an underutilized 2-star motel right now. The building's not in terrific shape, to be polite, and we think that I think it's desirable for the town at the gateway, their North Gateway, to have that property improved. So I would argue that that is a positive. I think as far as public convenience or welfare, there's a huge demand in Berkshire County for residential apartments. I can tell you that there are waiting lists throughout the county for apartments, and I work in this business, and I have folks calling me once a week asking me to help them get permits for apartments. And the reason is there's a huge waiting list and demand for workforce housing. Now, this is not going to be affordable housing or subsidized housing, but we believe that based on its size of the units, which are relatively small, that this will be workforce housing. So we think this fits a direct need here in the community, in Lee in particular. Number 3 is will not be detrimental to adjacent uses or to the established or future character of the neighborhood. There's a fair amount of work that actually that Nick helped us with on this, and this seems to be a bit of a transition area. We have the police barracks across the street. We have multifamily housing a little bit south. He talked about this at his opening to you at the select board meeting last week. And because this is, we have the Eagle Mill just down around the corner. We believe that a multifamily development in this area does fit. And I also think that the existing hotel is, frankly, has been there for nearly, 80 years, 90 years. It's part of the neighborhood. And it's part of the neighborhood character. And so renovating an old building that's in need of some tender loving care is going to rejuvenate the character of this property, and I think will improve the property values in the neighborhood. So will not create, number 4 is will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. The following is a comparison. So I put together a comparison of a 24-unit hotel to a 16 individual rental apartments. And depending how you look at it, in the morning, it's about 47% less trips. So we have 7 less trips. The total number for the hotel was only 15 trips. DOT, for example, doesn't consider a driveway significant until you get to 2,000 trips. So the AASHTO has a book that's very low volume roads. That's 400 trips. So at 15 trips, we're kind of into the extremely low levels where, engineers typically don't spend a lot of time talking about it. I mean, on a daily basis, you have 219 trips drop to 106. I think that's what the neighborhood will see. You'll see about half as many vehicles per day off of that property. And certainly none of this traffic could be considered congestion, which is your standard. But I think it's important to note that as you think of some of the other standards that we've already talked about, a reduction by 113 trips is significant on a property that's small. So the project will result in a decrease in traffic during all periods analyzed: Saturday, morning, afternoon, weekday, everything's lower. Number 5 is will not overload any public water, drainage, or sewer system or any other municipal facility. Well, those are primarily the two would be public water or sewer. And the way that's calculated is through the Mass regulations 310 CMR 15, which is Title 5, which is the sewer code. And that says that for every bedroom, you have a design flow of 110 gallons per bedroom per day. But as I said in my opening, we have less bedrooms, about 30% less. So a third less, 33%. So the fact is that we have less sewer and less water flow. We did the math. That hotel, by definition, did about 2,300 gallons a day. We had a 3-bedroom apartment that did it a little more, so we were at 2,630, and that reduces down to 1,870, or a daily reduction of 760 gallons per day. So that's it's like a couple houses less, is how I would think of that. Now there will be a replaced water connection for a sprinkler system, which is really a life safety, which I think is a positive overall. Otherwise, we've done very little changes to the site other than our plans to rehabilitate or renovate what's there. So there's not a big increase in stormwater. There's no big changes. There's no, I think our intention, I think the only thing we haven't talked about, Sam, is signage. Do we plan on removing the existing sign, or what's our plan?
Yeah, I think the existing sign.
So there you have the sign story. So our plan is to remove the existing sign because the applicant hates it. So that's
I don't think anyone wants to keep it.
that was a okay. So I think that concludes my my presentation. We've also discussed things, waste disposal already as part of site plan and snow storage. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you better stay there.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to ask you to go over the traffic numbers again.
Oh,
I
sure.
went by too fast.
Oh, no problem.
You mentioned a decrease of 7 a day of something. I don't know what the thing was.
So on page, just so if you're following along, on page 8 of 10 in the application booklet, so AM peak hour in the morning, which is, say around 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, you'll have 7 less trips in that hour. So it's like, instead of, two cars every, I don't know, 4 minutes, you have one car every 4 minutes. And then the PM peak hour is 4 less. I don't know. 15 down to 10.
And you mentioned 219 to 100.
Yeah, that's weekday daily trips. That's the most common occurrence. You have 200, that's the busy days during the week. And you have 219 for the hotel and you have 106 for the apartments. And these are, use codes under Institute of Transportation Engineers. That's where I got that.
Thank you.
Well,
Nick, the presentation or we get going here?
For the applicants, I just wanted to point out one, or make a suggestion rather, and that is what I would call a preliminary finding under section 6.1, and that is a finding based on the application and the information that's been submitted that the existing use of motel is in fact an existing non-conforming use under section 6.1. The information was submitted in the applicant package and is there, and it was discussed by Mr. Scalise before as well as me. I just want to make sure, or I'm going to suggest that a finding be made in addition as you're reviewing the criteria under 6.1.
Side yard requirement?
No, the use, is it the use itself? Okay. Existing non-conforming as well as the existing dimensional layout. So in both cases, the existing use and dimensional layout of the property qualifies as an existing non-conforming use and structure, and therefore is eligible for
Get that one out of the way. Actually, I think we can vote on that item right now. You can start, yeah.
So I'll move that the board find that the existing property at the 240 Street is an existing non-conforming use and is non-conforming with respect to the yard requirement of side yard requirement of 25 feet.
And the use of.
And the use, that was the first thing I mentioned.
As a motel.
As a motel, 2 ways, use as a motel and side yard are both non-conforming.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Dave got there first. Sorry, Matt.
No problem.
Pick on you first for the roll call. Matt?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Conrad?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Buck Donovan, aye. Okay, now I'll go around our board. Any questions or comments for the applicants?
I do. I do. It's very in town. You've got
Conrad, try to put that microphone right under your, I'm sorry. Try to put it right under. We'll try that one last time.
similar to the other rehabs you've had in town. Changing of use. Street had 20 units and 29 cars. And you get home up on East Street that had about 9 or 10 units. Also have the existing Lexington Complex. It's 700 feet south of this particular property. That's 36 units. So just some basic observations. The applicant in this particular site is a fee owner of the property today. He's not a contract purchaser. It's not the type of thing if he tonight or whenever. Fact of the matter, he is a fee owner of the property now, so he does have basically skin in the game. The existing building is underutilized. It no longer works as a functioning 2-star motel. It's 23 units, built in 1944. There's an option for anyone willing to into this. It's tired. It does need investment. The building use is functionally obsolete for the hotel. they're not going to be able to afford 23-unit hotel. Again, that model doesn't work anymore. That's why you see a lot of these throughout the small 20-unit hotels. That's why they're failing. That's why they're going vacant. Basically, if something isn't done with these older and smaller tenancies, Section 8 or voucher programs. The applicant has indicated that the apartments are going to be leased and seemingly will not be month-to-month tenanted well units. We could probably ask month-to-month arrangement. And just let me know if I'm wrong in that. Just a quick comparison. In this neighborhood, hotel or application for a conversion, Lexington Manor right now is 36-unit complex. It's on 5.2 acres. It's also located on Laurel Street. Side, it has more. It's got 5.2 units per acre. The number of units is 225% larger than what this applicant is proposing to do here. It has a higher trip generation than what we're going to have here. Opposing street, right across. Offset from this particular manor has one driveway, one full access driveway for ingress and egress. It's proposing 2 driveways, ingress one way on the northerly cut, egress only out of the southerly cut. And it's, like I say, 400-foot distance away from Deborah Avenue. What I'm saying here is the curb cuts just up the street, the 700 feet. So, you know, what the applicant's here, I'm thinking he could put a new roof on the building. Transient tenancies. I'm sure he doesn't want to do that. I'm sure the town doesn't. Not a great option for anybody. 20 piece of property into 3 residential building lots with roughly 125 feet of frontage each. He would have to demolish. Basis is right now when he bought it. That cost divided by 3 lots. There's no way this property can be marketed, sold, and the applicant be able to get what he's got into it, plus a return on his investment. Financially, it's not a viable option whatsoever. So that's another option. Third option is the owner can rehab this pre-existing non-conforming building, 16 apartment units. Actually managed compared to what's there today. And obviously it increases the town's tax. Obviously the owner of the property is going to lose. The butter is going to lose. And the neighborhood will basically witness a I mean, it's a very active reuse of an underutilized building that also has to be.
Peter, you have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions for the applicant or the owner, but I want to make sure that we get a chance to hear from the public, and he may cover what I was. You want me to ask him now, or you?
Yeah, go ahead and ask him.
Okay, so maybe Mr. Scalise, you could answer it, or the owner could if he prefers. So there was some comment last time about tenant screening and how you've had very good luck with tenant screening, and some of your other projects. I wonder if you could describe for us what lease arrangements you can offer and what sort of tenant screening processes you use.
It's Sam Nickerson, Ecos Properties. So yes, so the two questions were what kind of tenant screening do we do and what sort of lease terms do we offer? So for all of our properties, we have at least a year-long lease is typical. There are certain cases where we'll do less than that, but we're generally looking for a year lease. And you know, as I've said, we've had a good track record with the tenants that we've attracted. We're mostly getting renewals, and we have a long waiting list for all of our apartments. So most people are deciding to stick around for 2, 3, 4, and even 5 to 7 years. So the tenant screening that we do, we use a property management software that screens for a number of criteria. There are some financial metrics that need to be hit. We do a criminal background check on everyone. We do a credit score check on everyone. And then we also check for a landlord database for things like evictions. So it's a pretty thorough check that we do on everyone. And that's in addition to interviewing them and meeting them in person, kind of finding out their story and some of the more qualitative screening.
That sounds quite thorough. Do you have the ability, based upon your experience in other projects, to predict what sort of occupations people will have, if any, who will be renting? Will they be likely to be mostly blue-collar workers, technical people, teachers, policemen, anything like that?
It's really extraordinarily across the board. In the apartments now, I mean, we have everything from people where it's their very first apartment after they've graduated from college. We have young professionals who are coming in. People for various reasons are either saving up to buy a house or they just don't want to buy a house and they just want to rent. One interesting thing that's happening now that's relatively new in the apartment world is that the big growth in demand is from seniors who want to rent, because people get to a certain age and they sort of get over the joy of home ownership is what I call it. I mean, it becomes a lot of maintenance, and it's just much easier to have a maintenance staff that you can call to solve problems. So we're actually getting in addition to all the other, I guess, more traditional renters, we're getting more seniors looking for apartments as well. So it's really everything across the board. I mean, my preference as a landlord is always to try to find tenants that are part of the community and that are working nearby. And there's certainly huge demand in Lee. I know a lot of owners and especially the manufacturing companies, I mean, they really struggle to find housing nearby for the work. So this kind of mid-range price point is seriously in demand.
Concerns that some of the neighbors have expressed is how your tenants may interact with the surrounding lands of the properties that they live on or the downland that's behind there. Do you have any feeling as to how that's likely to work out? Are the tenants likely to be responsible people enjoying the town land in a normal way, or are they likely to be crazy party people who, throwing mini bottles of whiskey everywhere?
No, we don't anticipate any of those kinds of problems. I don't think it's going to be any different from any of the people that are living.
Dave?
Yeah, I've lived in town my whole life, and I've watched that piece of property go downhill for many years now. As far as my impression is, this thing is heading, the next step is a derelict piece of property. So I welcome the investment you're going to put into this thing. Looking at the plans, there's a lot of demolition, there's a lot of reconstruction, there's a gigantic expense, which is definitely a plus for the town.
Peg?
Yeah, could I ask if there were a problem? I hope there aren't. But would there be someone, you said you're going to have a property management or something. Would that be something the tenants would know, just that if there were a problem or people thought there were a problem? Because, you know, no matter how many apartments you have, sometimes there are issues or problems that have to be attended to very quickly, for your sake, for the owner's sake, as well as the neighbors. So would there be something that they would know, like if there's a problem, call X, Y, or Z, or
Absolutely, yeah. We're managing all of our properties directly. So
okay, great. Hands-on type of.
Yep, we're hands-on, you know, we're there all the time. All sorts of things can and do happen.
Yes.
Building in downtown Lenox, and the building was hit by a drunk driver, you know, I mean, just anything
Yes,
possible
yeah.
at any time.
Yes.
So it's just part of the business.
Thank you. No problems.
Matt, do you have anything?
No, I'm actually really good with it, and I'm excited for the project. I think the building definitely is on its downside, so I think it's going to be great for the community and serve a need for the rentals that are needed. So good luck and thank you.
We're not there yet.
Well,
not there. We got.
Actually, I did have one more. I'm sorry to come back at you, but in the comments that were made at the last meeting, I don't think you were present for that, but one of the people in town commented after we left officially the other night that she was concerned about the size of the units. And they look kind of small to me, but it seems to me there's probably an equation somewhere about the rent that applies to a larger apartment. So, I mean, there's one side of me that says, well, I'd like to have inexpensive apartments available for working Lee residents. The other side says, well, I'd like to have ample sized apartments available for Lee residents. But I realize those two are in conflict with each other. Do you have a sense for how this balance is working out now in the market at the moment? I mean, these are going to be small apartments, right?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great question. I do recall hearing. I was on the phone for the last one. Yeah, I recall the issue. A couple of answers on that. I mean, number one, the design matters a great deal on the size of these apartments. If you have a well-designed small apartment, it is no problem at all. I've rented apartments in New York City that were considerably smaller than the apartments that we're going to be building here. And some of them were really bad and dysfunctional, but some of them, if it's laid out properly, they just work. You know, especially for one person, which is what we're going to expect for the studio apartments. The other is, to your point, just hitting the kind of mid-range price point is really what we're trying to do with this project. Their affordable housing projects get done because they get lots of government subsidies and all sorts of special money. And then there are fancy custom homes that get built because there's all sorts of money for that. Very difficult to build something in the middle. And this is just a good opportunity to do that, which is unusual because of the existing structure and some of the characteristics that it has. So we're confident in the demand that will be there and our ability to create a very functional, high quality, not too big apartment. I think we've done it before.
And now we'll open up to the public if anyone has more to say.
So again, I'm Catherine Hibbard, and I'm a little bit disappointed that by that. Again, my husband and I own the property to the north at 2 230 and 240 Laurel Street, and the next property at 250, in the 7 acres that are to the north. We are also under contract to buy the property at 160 Laurel Street, which is the former property, and that's 7.5 acres, which is off to the southeast, overlooking uphill from the motel, looking down. Before I have some comments, would like to ask some questions from the applicant. Will pets be allowed at these apartments? And are the laundry facilities going to be in each apartment or on site, or what's the laundry situation?
It's going to have its own in-unit washer dryer.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just want to say I'm the 3rd generation to live in my home at Street, and several of the abutters here that are listed for this project have been in their homes since the 1960s. We have the Burts that I mentioned, the Consolatis, the DeLormes, and into the boundary line or the zoning to Burkwards, Wesovich, Marchand. So this is a neighborhood long-standing, very little changes. The applicant, we're all hardworking families with companies. We're all working class folks there. We really worked hard to maintain our properties, and I think the reason that this is a desired location to put some apartments is because of the care that we've taken to maintain our own properties and make it a nice neighborhood. And the applicant has emphasized the kind of the transitional use of the neighborhood and mentioning, the state police barracks, and those are part of the neighborhood, but they're very quiet uses. And there's also a lot of land associated with that, with those 2 properties, with the barracks and the Masonic Temple. There's 12 acres. There's, if you take a look, they are quiet uses. And back in 2006, we had another owner some improvements to the property. And at that point, the board rejected the characterization of the neighborhood as a transitional use or mixed use. In fact, the chair at the time said he drove up and down the road and looked and said, yes, it's a residential neighborhood. And I don't hear much talk about the residents of the neighborhood. I hear about all these mixed uses. I hear about the Lexington Manor down street. There's always an apartment house, and I just don't hear about the neighbors. And so I want to stress that this is primarily a residential neighborhood. And so that is it more detrimental to the neighborhood, where the neighbors live there and where the people are going to feel have established that neighborhood. Concerned that, we mentioned in opening remarks as part of the neighborhood with the mixed uses that were emphasized. And in fact, the first time we heard about this project was through a letter from the town about these hearings. And, we have a new buyer, a new neighbor, and this is the way that we met our new neighbor. But we don't want to say that, in spite of this, we welcome having new neighbors, new working folks come into our neighborhood. There's several things that we really like about this project. And one is that I agree, we need more places for working people to live. And I appreciate that the footprint of the building is not going to change. I grew up there. I'm happy that the footprint is not going to change. And I'm really happy that the ugly sign is going to be removed. We've gone before 2 times before in 15 years about that sign. And so thank you for removing that sign. However, I do feel that the scope of the project, the 16 units, is too large for the neighborhood. And I'm going to explain why I feel that way. And because I've done my own analyses too. And I feel that with and be more in harmony and not meet the finding that it is more detrimental. And so one of your findings that you mentioned is that you have to see if the project is essential or desirable to the public convenience or welfare at the proposed location. And I'd like to emphasize at the proposed location. And we've heard that the applicant is very successful at converting these units and making them better. And what we heard last time is that a lot of those units are in downtown locations, in a downtown location. This is a very rural residential area, even though it's got a busy street. And in back of it is a town forest. And so it is not down at the bottom of the hill. It's not the Eagle Mill. I wish, and I know you do too, that the Eagle Mill was going and providing the housing that it should be. But this is a little bit different flavor of this. And I would suggest that 16 units is not in harmony with the neighborhood. And I propose that 6 units is more appropriate. And there's several ways to look at that. And one is that if starting anew, only 12 units would be allowed in this. So you're already over by 4 units. And you can ask for a variance and ask that that variance be denied. I think that even 12 is too large. And so what I did is that I took okay, here's a non-conforming use. It's probably nothing exactly like this before. So let's take a look at where the footprint of the existing use is, which is this area here where the pool is up into the building. And I line with the interaction map, and I measured that polygon, and it's about 1 acre. And what's going to be happening with the additional use? Well, we're going to have this same polygon, but you're also going to be adding this backyard place where people are going to be using the backyard. So it adds about another ½ acre. So you have 1.5 acres. If you have 4 units per acre, that comes to 6. But if you don't like that type of analysis where you said, okay, you're not considering the whole 3 acres of the site, I also took all the abutters and looked at what their acreage is for their unit. And I even threw out the outliers with the property that I'm buying and that we currently own, because those are the largest areas in there. If you look at the abutters, and I also did another analysis. If you looked at all the buildings on the east side of Laurel Street, all the way from the mill up the hill, up to Golden Hill Road, it turns out that for each 4 acres. That's what it turns out to be. So if you applied this to be the same character of this for 3 acres, that would mean you'd have about 6 units would be the appropriate use that'd be more conforming. That's my reasoning. That's what I looked at, is that that would be the more harm currently there. It's not a downtown use. It's a more applicant that this is going to be a lot less use on the property, and I don't buy that. That we heard that the motel was underperforming, and it is. In fact, the reason why Mr. Desai came before the board was that he said that he only maintained 100% occupancy was during the weekends in July and August, and so he wanted to expand. So if you look in the winter, a lot of times that whole motel is dead. I mean, there's not going up and down, which actually for a use type of thing and the neighbors, it's quiet neighborhood. There are also the on-site managers or owners actually live there to control what was going on. So to use these comparisons about 16 units versus 24 is not quite painting the picture of what the current use was, because it was so, I'd be surprised I know that I've seen figures from iBerkshires, is that the average occupancy in the Berkshires is about 50, a little bit over 50%, about 54%. And I'd be surprised if that motel even reached near. So to say 100% versus, 24 versus 16, I don't think is the true use here. I think that actually, when you're going to look at it, there will be more traffic. I don't think it's going to be substantially more. I'm not arguing the traffic is going to be an issue, but I don't buy the argument that's going to be. And we hear that there's going to be pets allowed there. There's going to be pets allowed next to a natural area. And before I retired, I was a regulatory biologist for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for endangered species. And we took a lot we did the same thing that you're doing right now, is we took projects and we tried to so that we could reach some protection for animals and allow projects to go forward. When you add animals to the mix here, next to a town forest where there's a lot of wildlife, there's a lot of songbirds, especially feral cats, excuse me, are very detrimental to the environment. So I just want to point that out, is that we have people that are living full time, a lot more impacts than people who are just coming just for a short time and leaving. They're going to be using the area. There's going to be more noise. There's going to be more odors, and that's why we're suggesting to reduce those units. So thank you for addressing the screening for the parking. I think if you reduce the units, though, you won't need those parking areas, and that takes care of this situation in itself. So I think for the reasons that I've talked about, for the character of the neighborhood, the impacts to the forest, and I'm not saying that I want to limit people going there by screening. I'm talking about wildlife and people walking through the forest and their impacts for. I'm not talking about I'm glad that people that live there want to use things. I am concerned if they start. If they're irresponsible use, because they will go through our property, because there's a nice loop that we allow people go to access the forest. But I think right now, as proposed, that the project will be substantially more detrimental than the existing motel use was to the neighborhood. The other findings of the special permit that were mentioned is that I don't think, as is, it's in harmony with the zoning laws and protecting our property values. The density, to me, of all those people in that linear fashion squished in there with 16 units seems to be overcrowding to me. It doesn't conserve the value of the land and buildings, which includes the conservation of natural resources. And doesn't encourage the most appropriate use of land, taking in consideration the significant natural resources that you have in back of the motel and the conservation of natural areas. Now, when I looked at the findings, it says, in general for these bylaws that you're to be consistent with the objectives of the comprehensive plan of Berkshire County Regional Planning Commission. And when I looked on that, the most recent thing I could find was regional plan for the Berkshires for 2000. And it emphasizes the use of this open space and wildlife habitat. And then on the same site has the open space plan that it did in 2016, which mentions the town forest as one of those important areas that they want to be preserved. And in those recommendations, it asks the planning for these projects, to balance the desired economical things with the natural resources. Yet I haven't really seen any analysis of this, of the neighborhood, that if we're talking about neighborhood and neighbors, the whole backside of that 300 feet is the town forest. I haven't seen any analysis by that. The open space plan mentions the importance of private landowners like my husband and I for maintaining and wildlife habitat, but I'm not seeing anything from the town about preserving their town resources there. And I struggle to find who has ownership for the town forest. And I tried to forward my comments to the Conservation Commission, and the person said, well, but they've already decided on that. Well, they decided on the swale wetland thing, but I didn't hear any talk about that. I was trying to explain this as the whole project that I'm talking about, and I haven't seen any analysis for that. And I know that for the next part coming up, it's, required to be an impact statement about the character of the natural resources and the impact on the general ecology. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. I usually don't talk this much. So I ask you to please consider what I'm saying here, and to not be too decisional and decide.
Thank you, Catherine. Does anyone want to address their concerns or any thoughts?
I have some general thoughts about this. I'm inclined to support the project. But I just want to say about on the neighborhood and the town land. I hike up there fairly often, and somebody's taking really good care of that property. I know it's not the Conservation Commission, because I live next to another town property that is in a similar situation, and the town Conservation Commission doesn't really pay much attention to it. It's taken care of by the neighbors. And when I'm up there, you can hike from the parking lot over the ridge onto private property, which is property, and it's well taken care of. And I don't know if it's you who clears the falls through the rest of the property, but the rest of the trails, but somebody does a nice job up there, and that really adds value to the town. I guess my feeling is that the character of the neighborhood is quite diverse. I mean, it's residential, and this motel has sat there for decades in the middle of this residential area, creating problems for us in the past as to signs and now for the use. And I don't know if zoning has a good answer for that, but it is right next to Route 20, and it's not really a remote rural area. It's next to a U.S. highway. I respect very much the quality of the housing and the care that you people take in the neighborhood, but it is, I think, in very many ways, a mixed use. And I am also influenced very much by the responsibility apparent from the applicant and the need for workforce housing in Lee, which I think everybody acknowledges. Radio announcers down to people you meet on the street. That housing is really expensive and very hard to get in mid-range. So with the possible exception of maybe talking about reducing the number of units that get approved, I'm in support of the project.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you, Catherine, for that presentation. I'd like to touch on open space, and you recommended to cut it back to 6 units, which they'd have 6 higher priced units, which they would want to make more luxurious to attract that person that's going to pay that, which in turn would probably ask to increase the footprint. So we're not increasing the footprint on this. So we're keeping the same open space. And as far as planning, community planning, we read a lot about it. We try to learn. And a lot of the big mistake that America has made is we've done this sprawl thing. We've sprawled all of our communities out further and further, doing, okay, you have to have a 3-acre lot to build. A lot of towns have done that. And a trend like this, coming back to the small, affordable spaces that people can work and live in, is a better way for our resources and everything. So I appreciate your comments on that in support of this project. Gordon?
Thank you, sir. Before I say anything, is Ms. Ryan there? Because she had some comments after you guys left, and I said I took notes, so I would bring it up. But if Monica is there, I will let her go forward. But if not, I will speak up for her.
She's not here, Gordon.
Okay.
I know we touched on a lot of what she mentioned with the size of unit, portability. Yep.
Well, I didn't really hear any square footage minimums and maximums on the plan that's in front of you. So if you could tell us what the minimum size apartment is and what the maximum size is, I think that's what she was after. So, and it's all based on the plan that you're about, if you approve, it would be based on the plan dated, whatever the sketches that you have. So it could either somebody from SK or the owner just tell us what is the square footage involved from minimum to maximum.
Sure. And this is based on very preliminary.
Sure. Well, it's just know it's. You're asking the board to approve a plan that you put in front of them. If you vary from that, you're going to have to come back to the board again. So all I'm asking is whatever plan the board's approving right now, what are those square foot minimums and maximums?
Sure. Yeah. So we've got studio apartments, 1-bedroom apartments, and then there's a 2-bedroom apartment. The average square footage for, I mean, is the concern about what is the very smallest one? Is that the concern?
Yeah, well, I think I can't say what the concern was. It's not my concern. I'm speaking up for another resident in town who asked, what are the sizes? So if you could tell us what the very smallest one is and what the very largest one is, I think that would answer her question.
Yeah, so I think the smallest one is a studio, which is 367 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
The largest is 816.
Okay, thank you. And then to continue from there, she asked about the price of the rent. So you must have a business plan based on whatever your estimates are at this point. Do you have any kind of, you must have some kind of guess at least at what your price points may be for, you know, smallest to largest or whatever. Could you relay that to the board also as what you think this may be? And I understand you're not held to that.
Yeah, and I think the lady who was asking the question also acknowledged that these are very preliminary. We haven't gotten any construction numbers. And this is a point in time where we're going through a lot of inflation. I mean, it's very difficult to do this. I mean, the goal that we're trying to achieve to hit this sort of mid-range price point, the way that that's defined is through housing and urban development, the area mean income. And that varies depending on the number of people that are in each household. So at the low end for I think the numbers that we have right now are numbers from 2021. So I mean, we might be dealing with 2023 numbers by the time this is done. For somebody who's 80 to 100% of the area median income, you'd be in a rent range somewhere between $1,200 and $1,900 a month, something like that. But again, I mean, there's a whole host of variables, and this is, you know, looking far into the future. So I make sure that that's clear.
Okay, no, thank you. I can't get more precise on that question than what I just asked. I think that's an answer that she can mull over. The other is the question I think I know the answer to is, could you build up later? I know there's a section that's the second floor, but again, that would, because now you'd be conforming that it's a little tricky, because if you wanted to add a second story to this, the fact that you have more units, 16 rather than 12, still keeps you in a non-conforming situation. So I guess if you ever intended to do that, you would have to come back to this board that you're in front of now go through a similar process for pre-existing non-conforming to make your case if you ever tried to add a second story and more units. Would you agree to that?
Yeah,
That's-
of course. I mean, that's not the proposal to change the envelope in that way. And I guess if we did, which I don't think we ever would, but if we did, we'd have to come back and do this whole process again.
On the plans that were submitted to the planning board, it didn't appear that there were any decks out the back. You're just going to come out a back door. Is the intention to put decks on the back of this? And would there be divider screens between one deck unit to the other deck unit? That was, I believe that was one of her questions also.
We weren't anticipating building any decks.
Okay.
We are. Yeah.
No, that was the question. That's as far as I wanted to go, because they're not on your plan. So I just wanted to get that clarified. So no decks at this point. Obviously, she had mentioned she wants less units. The issue of trucks, speed, and Jake brakes, that's not a matter for you. That's more of a police issue and a road issue. But I think I've captured, you've lessened the lighting, and I know that it was mentioned that these come with a shielding package, and I would encourage you, living in an area where I live in, I know what looking at bare light bulbs sticking in your face every night's like. So if you could make sure that there's shielded lighting, that would be great, so that you weren't sitting there staring at the bulbs from all the neighbors. So those were her, I believe I have all her comments asked. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gordon. Okay, anyone else? Yeah, Matt did. Okay, at this hearing no more, I guess we're ready for findings. Oh, go ahead, sir.
It'll be quick.
Yeah, you're fine.
My name's Rick Golick, 250 Laurel Street. The question is how did you come up with 16 units, you know, in the actual footprint? And of that, how many people would actually be in 16 units?
Typically in a project like this, it becomes an architectural exercise is where you start. We had an existing building footprint to work with. It's most economical to stay in that footprint. It's also much easier to gain approval without making significant changes to a property. So adaptively reusing a building, kind of a smart growth principle, that's the approach. So, we try to fit the number of units, and then you try to balance with some diversity in projects like this. So we have a mix of 4 studios, 11 1-bedroom, 1 2-bedroom, and no 3-bedrooms. So the total bedroom count is 17. It'd be guesswork to really suggest how many people, but I would, suggest that in the studios, I wouldn't think you'd have more than 1 person, would be my wild guess, to be fair. So I think you have 13 bedrooms. In the 2-bedroom, I would think at most you would have 3 people. And then in the 1-bedroom studios, maybe half would be 1 person and half would be 2. So you're somewhere between, 17 and 30. 17 and probably closer to 25 people maybe at most on the property would be a fair guess, a reasonable guess, but there's no way to really manage that, a typical family has 2.3 occupants today. I have 7 in my house, so I think it's a wild guess to some degree, but it would be hard to fit more than, say, 20, 25 people in that building.
Thank you. We have Gordon with one more question.
Yeah, just a comment as far as the residents, the way the neighborhood looks now. I just think if, I know across the street you have the state police and you have a lot of single family homes. But if you go down the hill toward Eagle Mill, about 4 houses, and look across the street, you have a multi-story apartment complex already there, which is certainly part of the neighborhood. I actually don't know how many units there are in there, but I'm guessing that it's got to be 16. I don't know. So I don't know that it necessarily is out of character. It depends on where you consider a neighborhood to be. But I know that that's been there prior to zoning also. They're pre-existing non-conforming in that apartment complex. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Gordon, I think we mentioned there's how many, Conrad?
36.
36 in less.
Three 12 bedroom, three
Thank you.
12 units.
Well, I think when you're looking at neighborhoods, that's one thing you look at. You can't just look at the immediate abutter, but I think you have to look at, what is a neighborhood and what impact has that had? And have there been a lot of problems and detrimental issues with that? Just as part of the thought process. And if it is detrimental, then you need to keep that in mind. If it's not detrimental, you keep that in mind. I don't know how many complaints or abutters to that apartment complex that you've gotten any kind of comments from. But that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon. Matt?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to also mention, and maybe I missed it when Conrad was speaking, we also have examples on Prospect Street. That's in a very dense neighborhood, and I think that project, we could say, was a success and not detrimental to that neighborhood. And I also think we have the East Street vet home that was redone, rehabbed into apartments, and I think we can call that a success. So I just think there is some. Obviously, I've already tipped my hand, and I'm for the project. I think it is a good project and well needed. And one last thing, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to mention that we're going to be coming to a vote soon. So I wanted to mention, if you want me to mention this now or wait, but I filed a disclosure for an appearance of conflict, and I wanted to also announce it publicly. My wife is the niece of a couple of abutters. So I wanted to mention that. That's it.
And you filed that with the clerk, Matt?
I filed that appearance with the town clerk, yes.
Okay, John, ladies and gentlemen, we shall now go into findings. Our first finding is that such change, extension, or alteration shall not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood. I will say to that it will not be, because currently you have a motel, and this will turn into a 16 apartment residential one-year lease dwellings.
Mr. Chairman, could we make that in the form of a motion that we vote on separate findings?
We're going to vote. That's pretty much the finding, and then you guys will do a roll call on each finding.
Okay.
If you agree or disagree. So I'll do the first one now. Conrad? Yes or no on that finding?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes, and I think also in part because of the testimony we've heard and the findings we've had from the August 4th plan as to reduction in sewer, water, and traffic, reduction in the demand due to permanent versus transient users, the reduction in usage based on having less people on site, at least as compared with peak motel usage, and based on recent favorable experience with similar projects at the Veterans Home and on Prospect Street. So my vote is yes.
Thank you. Dave?
Yes, I agree.
Matt?
I vote yes.
This determination, I vote yes. Buck Donovan, yes. To the next one. Such extended, altered, or reconstructed structure or change use shall not be in greater nonconformity with space, yard, and off-street parking requirements of this chapter. And this may be voted yes because they have demonstrated that they have added off-street parking would not be detrimental, and they are not encroaching any further in open space than what is already non-conforming.
Base has been met,
Correct.
so you've met that. The side yard is at 21 feet.
Yep.
It's supposed to be 25 feet. It's not in greater than.
Your vote on this, Conrad?
Is yes.
Peter?
I would have liked to have had a discussion about the 16 units, about whether we can make a finding that 16 units is not in greater nonconformity. I don't accept the argument that there should be 6 at all, and I'm reluctant to raise this at all because I don't know the economics of, say, redesigning it for 12 units, which is what the bylaw sets as the maximum for multifamily housing. I wonder, can I get a sense of the board to see if anybody else is interested in that before we make this finding, Mr. Chairman?
We can. Personally, I think 12, 16 is not going to be an impact property because the footprint's not changing. Dave?
I would also welcome that discussion, the 12. But I really need to know financially, is it, does it make good financial sense to do this? I think I can kind of read the answer, but I still would like to hear that before we make a decision.
My reason to be hesitant to bring it up is that I also don't know the economics. And if as a result of forcing the applicant to go to 12, we raise the rents by $500, I'm not sure we've done anybody any favors.
Exactly.
What I can tell you is that I think this applicant's already given testimony that it's a little difficult to project what's going to happen in the future. But what I can tell you is that I'm building a 16-unit coincidentally project in Tewksbury with Soldier On, who gets fully subsidized, frankly. And it's extremely difficult to meet your numbers today because of the flux in the market. I mean, the material costs, the construction costs are astronomical. Product is hard to come by. We're actually have gap funding problems with that project, and that's 100% affordable, and for veterans, couldn't ask for a better demographic as it relates to funding. And I will tell you that regardless of the applicant's pro forma, that he's in a tough spot because of so the number of units is critical as it relates to the economics of this project. And there's no way that reducing this wouldn't burdensome to this applicant.
I've been involved in some of these in the past. I don't know how you're saying with the land acquisition, the construction costs that they're looking at right now. Amortize that over 16 units versus 12. I don't see how it pencils for less than 16.
16. 16.
Not less than 16.
Yeah.
But
honestly,
it's not our purview for the economics. We're here about zoning.
But you got to worry about if they can't make this thing work.
They can't make it
We're
work.
gonna be stuck in that building the way it is, and nobody's.
I think the bottom line is, will 16 be more that much?
I don't think 16 has any more detrimental impact, any more impact than 12. I think it's fine. That's the way I feel.
When you look at the trip generation, those 4 units, it's a.
That's my thought too.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you're ready to resume the count, I'm a yes.
Okay. Dave?
Me also, I am yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Okay, Buck Donovan, yes. And now we will get into the 5 findings of a special permit. First one is that this permit is in compliance with all provisions and requirements of this chapter and in harmony with its general intent and purpose. Harmony and provisions, the provisions that we are adhering to are 6.1, pre-existing non-conforming. And in harmony with general intent, we're taking a rundown, 2-star motel, and we're giving the ability to have permanent residential housing for people of our community. Anything else you'd like to add to that for the first finding?
I agree, it's good.
Yes, Peter?
Yes, we are also, as was mentioned in the testimony, the L to multifamily housing is changing from a disallowed use to a use that's allowed on permission with review.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I think, less in violation of the spirit of the zoning. So I support it.
Dave?
Yes.
Matt?
Excuse me. Yes. Sorry about that.
Donovan, yes, on first finding. Second finding, is essential or desirable to the public convenience or welfare at the proposed location. And in response to this, our community does need the housing. Again, it's a motel that is falling into disrepair. It is, the neighborhood does have a multi-family dwelling already, Lexington Manor. And it would be permanent resident people, not transients. So.
Basically, the applicant has revised the plans in accordance with August 4th submission, so I think it's a yes.
Peter?
Yeah, in light of the very heavy demand for residential apartments. And also I agree in that I think the future with this project is much more likely to improve property values in the neighborhood than the alternative future without this project and with the derelict motel.
Agreed. Yes. Dave?
Yes, I'm in agreement.
Matt?
Yes.
Buck Donovan? Yes, in agreement. Come to our third finding. Will not be detrimental to adjacent uses or to the established future characteristic of the neighborhood. And to this, we just kind of touched on it, that it is a much better site than what could be with a motel, or even if somebody came in and fixed up that motel, it's not viable these days, that the numbers. A multifamily in that neighborhood can be a thriving part of the neighborhood and will increase values. We've had, we've mentioned around town already, East Street, the Veterans Home, Prospect Street, all these arguments against those projects were the same, similar, and we have seen how those have outcome. So I would say this project suffices this finding. Conrad?
And motel really is not a good, it's not a business model any longer. On with it, it's going to deteriorate further. It's not going to be any good for the neighborhood at all. Should be better for somebody before the contiguous abutters.
Peter?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I agree with what's been said. I also would mention something that I think has not been brought up, which is that I believe there's a sidewalk there. And if we're talking about the future character of the neighborhood, having affordable worker housing within walking distance on a sidewalk of the downtown, I think is a real asset. So I'm in favor of 3.
Dave?
Yes, because of the look we've had with projects in the past based on the same idea. And there's also a large housing just down the street from them. I'm definitely yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Thank you, Matt. Buck Donovan, yes. Brings us to number 4. Will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. As the applicant has shown, the trip count will be less. Dave just mentioned, the sidewalk will be cleaned up, sign will be gone, be much more conducive to pedestrian safety and walking. And the traffic data it's really even a non-issue with this. And we've seen it with other projects that people talk about the traffic, and it really is a non-issue.
In addition, you have two driveways. You have two driveways that are full access driveways. The applicant, by virtue of their plan, to make the northerly drive. So you split the trips and keep them inside plan. So that's a better. So. The pedestrian activity with the sidewalks. Yes.
Yes, I sympathize with the neighbors who, I think, understandably compare the likely trips from the new project with the actual trips from the underutilized motel. And I understand that that is likely to be an increase in traffic. But in deciding this, I feel the proper standard is to compare like with like, to compare the likely trips from a utilized motel with the likely trips from a utilized rental apartment structure. And there, the number of trips is demonstrably going down, as Mr. Scalise demonstrated, I think. So I'm a yes on number 4.
Dave?
With the data presented to us tonight and in the past, with the number of trips, yes, I'm in favor.
Thank you. Matt?
I agree with Peter's sentiments on comparing like to like, and I know it's underutilized now, but I'm a yes if we're comparing like to like. So that's a yes.
Yeah. And Buck Donovan, I'm a yes also. Brings us to the 5th finding. Will not overload any public water, drainage, or sewer system or any other municipal facility to such an extent that the proposed use or any existing use in the immediate area or in any other area of the town will be unduly subjected to the hazards affecting public health, safety, or general welfare. As the applicant has proven, the municipal uses will be actually lower than a like we've said again, not an underutilized, a utilized motel. So basically we're looking at the water and sewer usage will be less, and they'll be increasing a new water line in there for safety.
And no impact to water and sewer. Fire service is going to be enhanced.
Yes. Peter, yes. Dave?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
So now brings us to a final motion for the planning board to grant a special permit for a change of use and acknowledging the dimension.
Yeah, I move that the board issue a special permit under 6.1B for the change of use in accordance with the plan submitted dated August 4th, and in accordance with the testimony tonight, and in accordance with the restrictions that we previously imposed as conditions in the site plan review.
Second.
Seconds. Any further discussion? Where's Gordon? Come on, Gordon. I know you got.
He left.
No, he left.
He's gone.
He did his duty.
And citing the plan, I believe we cover all the bases we need to there, right?
I did mention the date.
And the date, yes. And that, so the plan does specify that the number of units in it.
It's still subject to the site plan review that was just granted.
Okay, Hearing no further discussion, I'll take a roll call vote. Conrad,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Dave,
Aye.
Matt,
Yes.
Donovan, yes. At this point, I'd like to close our public hearing and get back to regular business of the planning board.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
The agenda, or is that it? Okay.
Yeah, and
Peter, you're, Kath?
thank you for coming back again, folks.
Yeah.
Sorry it didn't work out the other night. That was an experiment.
Nick, you're gonna, there's now on this, you need to issue an order.
Catherine,
Work with Beth on what.
Catherine, Peter's going to do the, what's he gonna do now? No, the big thing on open space and everything. You might be interested.
Yeah, I want to make sure that the findings are consistent with what we
Speaking to him at some
did,
point.
of course.
Master,
But
we're
I
doing
want to
the
make
master.
The
sure.
master plan, because of open space and stuff. No, but he's going to chair it. Sorry to bring up something different, but you do seem to be very interested in open space and, yeah. So maybe you'd be a good, well, I'm just thinking out loud, that's all. Okay, yeah,
Welcome your participation, regularly or occasionally. And I'm sure we'll have at least one for the public hearing.
yeah,
Okay, well, thank you very much.
yeah. The trails up there are beautiful that
You guys hike?
maintained. I know you said that, yeah. You can walk up to the pinnacle and they are lovely.
Even knew there was hiking
Go
paths
up.
up there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What's that
Nice
road?
up
It's,
no, really, it's beautiful though.
there's a parking lot there.
Yes, yeah, there is.
Conservation Committee, I think, maintains the parking.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
she does a lot.
Golden Hill,
Golden Hill,
yeah.
yeah.
Then you go up and there's a lollipop trail. that-
Yes, yeah.
Right. but
I know we're off the subject.
Property. You get on private,
Yeah.
and it's very nice. It's right behind their houses. And they-
Beautiful.
They take care
Yeah, they do. She does a great job. So she'd be great on your, I mean, I'm just saying, thinking.
Well, it's too late to get her on the committee now.
Oh, well, all right.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
She can come.
I mean, anyone's input.
Yeah, which is good, because, yeah,
We covered most everything. We only just have our own, any issues that the planning board has. One that I want to bring up, and I want us to send a notice out, two actually, the sign for Canna on their new property.
oh,
Yeah.
I did see that. They come to us for,
I believe they need a permit on that.
I think so too.
What about the color?
We can't control the color. We can't control.
I was
He
right.
tried.
I was right.
I remember that.
We
Peter.
tried.
Yeah,
I got blasted.
but I'm so glad to see the building
So we're,
used.
we're all in agreement to just get a hold of Eric.
Yes.
Eric,
Yeah,
and they need to get a permit
Yeah.
for that. Also, Starbucks, I'd like to send them a notice that we approved a landscape site plan with the assumption that it would also be maintained.
mm-hmm,
I spoke to the manager there last week. I just acting on my own. I said, I have no authority to speak for Lee. I said, but, I'm on the planning board and we approved a landscaping plan. And I can't see your bushes because they're surrounded by tall weeds. And she was minutely arranging, tiny little packets of almonds on the shelves, make sure that they were perfectly presented.
mm-hmm.
And I said, you're gonna get to this, right? Oh, yeah, we're working on it. Well, that was a week ago.
So Beth, what's the procedure? You talk to Matt and you sick him on them? He's our enforcement officer?
Yeah.
Matt Comer, not
Oh.
our Matt. Okay,
I-
that's about,
Yeah. I reached out to Beth too, like last week when I saw it. It was terrible. And then I got a couple people that said something to me. I can't believe it, really.
I'm very surprised for a company like that. You would have thought as soon as they moved in, they'd have a maintenance
They
company.
got a recent MBA for a manager who's, doesn't look outside. She's got 4 people standing around waiting to make a cup of coffee and, nobody that can handle a sickle.
The mural was supposed to go on the big cabinet.
Oh, that was
They
the
aren't
other
gonna
thing
do
too.
that.
No?
We tried that.
You
He
did
didn't.
try that. That would have been nice, though. I mean, they do it elsewhere. I don't know.
You go through, Pittsfield went up to us on this one. Come on.
Yeah.
Pittsfield's got some nice
Yeah, they
art
do.
on their.
Yes, they do.
No, not their Starbucks, but on their mechanical.
Yeah.
Their traffic
Oh,
boxes,
oh,
their
yeah.
street transformers,
Oh, yeah.
stuff like
Oh,
that. Yeah,
Maybe
I'm-
the Arts Committee could give a grant to somebody to paint something.
there we go.
My wife is on the Arts Committee.
Oh, there you go.
How connected we are. Anything else, folks?
The other thing is, I'm thrilled though that they bought the cannabis place, because that has been abandoned since 1992.
They did talk about tearing it down.
I know, but I'm thrilled that
They
at
can,
least,
but they can never replace it.
Isn't it like a Superfund site?
Well, it was
well,
heavily
they,
contaminated.
yes, and they,
And it took years,
Almost.
1990.
because they didn't want to do an invasive cleanup where they dig everything up, there's nothing left.
Right.
It'd be this building standing there like on an island.
Yeah.
So they did all kinds of
They did
groundwork.
Point
with-
wells and.
That's right, vacuums and,
But the other issue is, that building is in the 100-year.
yep.
Write down, make up the numbers.
Mm.
It's 1,200, 1,300 square feet. It's, I think, about a foot and a half up. And so it's 1,300 cubic feet. So you gotta wait until you.
Walk on the river walk, even behind
Tear
it.
down the
just-
building.
That's where it is gonna be.
Well, he was gonna do it on his own.
No.
So you have to use the same walls?
Got the money.
No, what you can do is,
Storage in the basement?
no,
Make it,
you have an existing building
yeah.
predated all the.
Callahan.
Callahan. Put a bigger building down here.
Or more of the.
So you gotta dig a hole in your other lot?
Yes.
Okay.
But you can record it in the registry of deeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a conservation issue, it's also a zoning board of appeals. Regulated.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing I was just going to bring up is that Gordon made the statement once about industrial areas that we should be looking at. I don't think he was talking about 102 as much as some of the other areas. And I have noticed that there's been a lot of transfers between different people. And maybe we should look at that, because they could probably put in certain things that,
Zoning, okay?
well, I don't know. I felt he made a really good statement. Because we sometimes, unfortunately, get stuck. Not necessarily 102. I think it was going up to Goose Pond in particular, that area.
He said the mill. He mentioned the mill up there.
Yes, and not only that, but that somebody could come in an industrial area and put in certain things that maybe people wouldn't want.
I think that's already industrial.
It is, yeah. So he was just mentioning that. It might be something at some point. We got an awful lot to do. I'm not looking for more to do, but it might be something, because I noticed like Casella has bought some property. Different people there's been different properties that have changed hands, and.
You want the rundown? Give you the rundown.
Sure.
Stella bought all of Valley and WTF.
Yes. Oh, I know. I saw, I mean,
And in the deal,
yeah.
the owners of WTF, Casella owned the old Daily property.
Yes.
Okay, so they sold the owners of WTF. Part of the deal.
Okay.
Okay. They have no intent other than to clean that site up.
Oh, well, good. That's good. That's good.
No transfer station going.
Oh,
in.
good,
They're
good.
not gonna move the crushing
Oh.
project off of Woodlawn?
Be aware it does have it is permitted to do recycling.
That's right, it is.
It is, yeah.
Yep. So-
Well, anyways, it's
so
just
what
something,
can be done on
Woodlawn? That's
now
right.
can be done down there.
that's right. No, right. Yeah.
I just have two things. I just wanted to say great job tonight, Buck,
Yeah.
and running the meeting. And the hybrid thing is almost there. It was just the you could hear Peter good. It was just the end at Conrad, so I don't know if it's the mic, but I'm sure we'll get that figured out.
Soft-spoken, Matt. You come over the thing like.
I don't think it's a soft spoken. Actually, that was pretty good, but I don't think it was because he's soft spoken. Because he would come through at times, but it just would cut out. So, but other than that, you could hear everybody.
All right,
One quick thing.
go ahead.
Last time we had a she's in town. So did go, but
Did you measure the lighting levels under the island?
no. No, but I estimated the size of the canopies. Okay, which ones were lit? It's lit at night.
Lighting up the
It is cleaner though down there.
It's lighting up the gray fascia that's nothing on. But I mean, the light is already in and it's already on.
Yeah.
All the gas stations in town either had station, Joe's. It's got their graphics on it. Example, doesn't have any lighting on it. Got that.
Blue stripe, yeah.
Neon.
Well, yeah, it's a blue.
Yeah.
But this is exposed neon. It's real.
They're right on the edge on all of it.
And this could be versus gone from the barn and close the door, but you know,
I
I
kind
just
of,
think about how unfair it is. Well, that, you know, a motel down on Housatonic Street has to have a sign that's the size of a piece of plywood. And the gas station next door gets to light up and make the place look like, you know,
A carnival.
Kennedy Center Space Launch, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just unfair to the other people. Some parts of the town live like that.
They're not lit. allowing way back when. Solid blue canopy fascia.
Me too.
We couldn't put up the graphic.
Oh, yeah.
That's in those branding standards.
Okay. Yep.
And I'm surprised Snowco hasn't come here yet, to ask for that. So
But, you know, like you say, and Matt said, the carts, the horses are already out of the barn, whatever. A lot of Housatonic Street is already turned over since I've been on the board. So if we did get something, I don't know what options is there.
I don't either.
They'd have us there.
But I gotta go.
I do too.
All right, everybody out.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.